Hello and welcome to the first in our series of short talks about constructed development theory and its components. My name is Dr. Darren Stevens and I work here at the Institute for Adult Development as well as lecture at university and offer bespoke development programs for organisations. This mini presentation will be very heavy on the science, so be prepared to pause the video and read the content. When I decided to do my doctoral research, I noticed that development psychology was a mishmash of theories and approaches. This led me to the question, what is the lowest common denominator that unites and separates all the theories? From the literature, it was apparent that everyone was describing all the same things, but simply using different lenses. We expect psychology to be a dictionary of definitions, but in reality, it's simply a thesaurus. CDT is my answer to the definition problem, but how do we know it is robust? Constructed development theory takes its name from its central premise that self-awareness and cognitive growth are concepts that are constructed by the brain. The aim of the theory is to develop perspicacity. Each hexagon on this slide has its own explanation video for you to watch. The theory of constructed development focuses on how human beings utilize shortcuts in their thinking, called cognitive intentions, in order to construct their intention, awareness, choice, and response in the moment. How aware we are of our relationship with these shortcuts is key to how we act and react in the moment, and CDT asks if it is a habit or a choice. Pause the video here to read the slide. This waterfall is an illustration of the facets of CDT that combine to cement CDT as a theory. So how do we validate a theory within the scientific framework? And is this any different within psychology? We will explore this on the next few slides. The next slides are quite text intensive too, so please be aware that there will be more pausing necessary, like here. A scientific theory must be consistent, parsimonious, useful, testable, and falsifiable. Repeatable, correctable, progressive, and tentative. And if we miss one or two out, it's not the end of the world. But missing more would be a disqualification for CDT. This is the same slide, but with the requirements fully fleshed out for your understanding. Pause here and read them. As you do, consider other theories on vertical development, adult development, and so on, to see whether your knowledge of them passes this muster too. This is the question I asked during my research. This slide answers the question of whether CDT can be considered a scientific theory by walking down the waterfall and addressing each facet individually. If you are not inclined to read it, the answer is yes. CDT does fulfill the criteria for theoretical reification. Within CDT is a framework both for coaching and vertical development for humans. As much as I disagree with some of the positions put forward here, I felt it necessary to align my theoretical claims with the accepted norms for conforming to a framework. Pause the video here, and again, the answers are on the next slide. Basically, this slide is answering the question of how the framework is robust by way of its verifiable and repeatable explanations of how we behave based on our conscious or unconscious construction of self. Of course, if you want the data behind the research, please do get in touch with the IAD. Continuing the premise of the last few slides, CDT explains how we construct our thinking in the moment using 50 cognitive heuristics, shortcuts in our thinking that we have habituated over time. And these are those shortcuts. I call them cognitive intentions, as there is a collective intention contained within each one, as the premise of a heuristic suggests. For more information on these, please see the separate video below. The 4 pillars of CDT is the lens through which we view our use of these cognitive intentions. The interesting and useful thing about these pillars is that they are applicable across contexts. For example, I use them to teach martial arts or deconstruct trait theory. There is another video on that below too. CDT tells us that each cognitive intention pair, such as internal or external, is a shortcut to an habituated pattern of unconscious thought. Their combination creates for you what CDT calls your unique thinking style. On the left is a profile at the lower end of my awareness quotient scale, and on the right, a higher level thinking style. What do you notice is the main difference between the two? This forms the basis of stage transition from a CDT perspective, and there's also a video about that below. Thus, constructed development theory gives us a validated, robust, repeatable, empirically tested, dynamic, progressive, and parsimonious route to a vertical development that isn't typical of the adult development arena. So the timeline of adult development research is now complete. Pause the video here and have a look at some of the main players. If you need a chart, here is where CDT fits in from a levels perspective. Please see my ASRED talk on why levels are not necessary, what psychometric isomorphism is, and how it applies to the adult development arena too. The development onion goes some way to resolve this issue. I hope you understand that all the words and the lines you see on this slide are arbitrary. Finally, CDT makes a number of claims, not only to its robustness, but also its efficacy across contexts. Pause the video here and read about how CDT is the only measure of adult metacognition, an original term used in my original research. Or how CDT supports Piaget's disequilibrium principle in adult thinking. Or how you might become a constructed developmental psychologist here at the Institute for Adult Development. Thank you for listening and watching. Do get in touch today if you are interested in learning more about CDT, next level coaching, the IAD, and more. Take care.